This is the wisdom of Naval Ravikant. He is an entrepreneur, investor, and philosopher of the modern age. Through his words and ideas, millions of people have learned how to think clearly, build wealth, and live a happier life. The Almanack of Naval Ravikant is not a step-by-step manual. It is a collection of timeless lessons. Lessons about money, lessons about decision-making, and lessons about finding peace of mind. Naval believes that true success is freedom. Freedom from trading your time for money. Freedom from confusion and bad decisions. And freedom from endless desire that steals happiness. This book is divided into two great parts. The first is about wealth, how to build it, how to use leverage and judgment, and how to escape the trap of working only for money. The second is about happiness, how to understand it, how to practice it, and how to free yourself from unhappiness. Every idea here is short, simple, and powerful. You do not need complex formulas to change your life. You need clarity. You need patience. And you need the right principles that stand the test of time. Let us begin with the first part, the lessons on wealth. Because when you learn how wealth is truly created, you begin to see a path to freedom. Part 1. Wealth, building wealth. Wealth is not about having money alone. It is about creating assets that bring freedom, security, and choices in life. Naval reminds us that money is only a tool to transfer wealth, but true wealth is something deeper. It is the businesses you own, the skills you master, and the reputation you build. This part teaches us the timeless principles of creating wealth. You will learn how to develop rare skills, play long-term games, and build leverage. You will see why ownership matters more than wages, and you will discover how patience, focus, and judgment combine to create lasting success. Wealth is not built overnight. It is a journey of clarity, action, and discipline. And that journey begins with the first lesson. Let us step into Chapter 1. Understand how wealth is created. Chapter 1. Understand how wealth is created. Most people confuse wealth with money. They think if they have a lot of money, they are wealthy. But Naval makes a clear distinction. Money is only a tool, a medium of exchange, a way to move value from one person to another. It is not the true source of freedom. Wealth is very different. Wealth is assets that earn while you sleep. It is the businesses you own, the code you write, the books you publish, the brand you build. It is the factory that runs without you, the software that sells while you are resting, the content that keeps working even when you are offline. Wealth is something that works for you, even when you are not working. Money alone can disappear. If you only have cash, you can spend it quickly. If you only trade your hours for wages, you are limited. Because time is finite. No matter how hard you work, there are only so many hours in a day. If you rely only on your labor, you will stay stuck in the cycle of earning and spending. This is why Naval teaches that wealth creation is about breaking the link between time and income. You must own something that scales. You must create or buy assets that do not require your constant effort. Another misunderstanding people have is about status. Status is not wealth either. Status is about who is above and who is below. It is about comparison. In politics, in society, in culture, people fight for status. But this is not freedom. Status depends on others. Wealth depends on what you create. So how is wealth really created? It is created by solving problems for society. When you build something that people want but do not yet know how to get, you create value. That value turns into wealth. If you help millions of people, you can earn millions. But the key is to focus on creating, not just competing. Technology has made wealth creation open to more people than ever before. In the past, you needed permission. You needed land, factories, and large amounts of capital. Today, one person with a laptop and an internet connection can build something that reaches millions. You can create software, art, music, stories, knowledge, and share them instantly with the world. The tools are free or cheap. The leverage is enormous. The only limits are your creativity and effort. But wealth does not mean greed. It is not about taking from others. It is about growing the pie for everyone. If you build something useful, you make life better for others. They reward you in return. This exchange is what builds a prosperous society. Naval also warns us that chasing shortcuts will not work. Gambling, quick schemes, and tricks may give you temporary money, but they will not give you wealth. True wealth comes from long-term thinking, from building with integrity, and from patience. This first lesson sets the foundation. To live a life of freedom, you must stop thinking of money as the goal and start thinking of wealth as the result of creating value. You must shift your mindset from wages to ownership, from consumption to creation, from short-term status to long-term assets. And once you understand this truth, the next question naturally arises. If wealth is created through value and ownership, how do you personally find the right place to start? What knowledge do you need to build? What skills make you unique in a way that others cannot easily copy? That is where the next chapter takes us. Chapter 2. Find and build specific knowledge. Creating wealth starts with having knowledge that is rare, valuable, and uniquely yours. Naval calls this specific knowledge. It is not something you learn from textbooks or school exams. It is knowledge that cannot be easily taught. It comes from your natural curiosity, your passion, and the experiences that shape you. Specific knowledge often feels like play to you, but looks like hard work to others. It is something you do because you love it, not because someone told you to. When you are deeply interested in a subject, you naturally invest time, practice, and creativity. This is how mastery happens. The more specific your knowledge, the harder it is for others to replace you. Naval emphasizes that specific knowledge is almost always unique to the individual. It is the combination of your personality, skills, and experiences. For example, one person may become a world-class programmer because they love solving problems with code. Another may build a rare insight into human behavior because they observe, write, and reflect. Both paths lead to specific knowledge, but neither can be copied easily. It is also important to note that specific knowledge cannot be standardized. Jobs and skills that can be taught in school or replaced by machines or other people are not specific knowledge. If you only have replaceable skills, you will always be limited in income and influence. So how do you find your specific knowledge? Start by noticing what you enjoy deeply. Ask yourself, what feels effortless yet challenging to me? What am I willing to spend hours doing without external reward? Where does my curiosity naturally lead me? The answers point toward your unique strengths. Next, build on your curiosity. Dive deep into your chosen field. Learn from mentors, books, experiments, and real-world practice. Take risks that push your limits. Specific knowledge grows as you combine skills in ways others cannot replicate. Naval also highlights the importance of being authentic. Do not try to learn skills just because they are trendy or high-paying. Learn what excites you. When your work aligns with your passion, creativity flows naturally, and results follow. Specific knowledge also scales. When you combine it with leverage like code, media, or capital, your work can reach millions. A single person with rare expertise can create immense value and wealth. This is the modern advantage. The world rewards people who are both authentic and excellent at what they do. Finally, specific knowledge is a foundation for long-term success. It is the first step toward freedom from trading time for money. It prepares you to build businesses, products, or investments that can grow while you sleep. Once you have identified and begun building your specific knowledge, the next question becomes natural. Who should you work with? How do you create relationships that compound value over time? This is the subject of the next chapter. Chapter 3. Play long-term games with long-term people. Wealth and success are rarely built alone. Naval emphasizes that relationships are one of the most powerful forms of leverage in life, but not all relationships are equal. To create lasting impact and true wealth, you must learn to play long-term games with long-term people. A long-term game is a relationship or venture where trust, integrity, and patience compound over time. It is not about quick wins or short-term gains. It is about building value steadily, knowing that consistent effort with trustworthy people produces results that multiply. Why does this matter? Because short-term thinking creates friction. People focused on immediate rewards often cheat, lie, or manipulate to get ahead. They burn bridges and leave chaos behind. When you collaborate with such people, your growth is limited, and your efforts are wasted. Long-term partners, on the other hand, amplify your success. When you work with people who share your values and vision, trust becomes a multiplier. Every action, every decision, and every effort compounds over time. This is how businesses grow, reputations strengthen, and wealth accumulates. Naval points out that reputation is the foundation of long-term games. People will take risks and reward you when they trust you implicitly. A good reputation acts as leverage. It opens doors, creates opportunities, and allows collaboration at a scale that would be impossible alone. Playing long-term games also changes your mindset. You stop obsessing over competition. Instead, you focus on collaboration, quality, and excellence. You look for partners who will be there for the journey, not just the moment. You become someone people want to bet on because they know you deliver, you are consistent, and you play fair. Naval also teaches that long-term games are not limited to business. They exist in friendships, mentorships, and personal relationships. Choosing wisely whom you spend your energy on affects your happiness and success. Align yourself with people who are ethical, skilled, and patient. Your circle determines the scale and speed of your growth. Another key idea is that time compounds in long-term games. A small effort today with the right people may seem insignificant, but over months and years, it multiplies exponentially. One collaboration can lead to many opportunities. One shared success can become the foundation for a lifetime of achievements. Playing long-term games requires patience and discipline. You cannot expect immediate payoff. You cannot cheat or cut corners without destroying the trust that fuels compounding. But if you commit, the rewards are enormous, not only in wealth, but also in knowledge, reputation, and personal growth. Once you understand the importance of long-term relationships, the next lesson becomes clear. To thrive in these games, you must also take responsibility for your actions. You must be accountable for results, for promises, and for the risks you undertake. This brings us to the next chapter. Chapter 4. Take on accountability. Accountability is the hidden key to wealth, success, and trust. Naval teaches that the most successful people do not avoid responsibility. They embrace it. When you take accountability, you attach your name and reputation to your work, your decisions, and your outcomes. This creates trust, which is the foundation of every valuable relationship and opportunity. Most people shy away from risk because they fear failure or blame. They do not want to be responsible if things go wrong, but avoiding accountability limits potential. It keeps you in the safety of mediocrity, trading time for wages, and following orders rather than creating value. Taking accountability is also a form of leverage. When you accept responsibility, people trust you with bigger challenges. They allow you to make decisions, lead projects, and own assets. This trust translates into influence, opportunities, and ultimately, wealth. Naval points out that accountability multiplies your rewards as much as it multiplies your risks. If you are willing to risk your reputation, you gain access to high-leverage situations. Those who avoid risk can never achieve extraordinary outcomes. The more you are accountable, the more freedom and power you can earn over time. Accountability also aligns your incentives with results. When you are responsible for the outcome, your effort becomes focused, creative, and committed. You stop worrying about appearances or short-term recognition. You concentrate on what truly works and creates value. Another key insight is that accountability builds reputation. People notice who consistently delivers and owns their actions. This reputation compounds like money in a bank. It becomes a form of leverage that opens doors and attracts long-term partners. Naval emphasizes that true leaders and entrepreneurs thrive in this environment. Employees trade hours for money, but entrepreneurs and creators take on accountability and reap the larger rewards. Ownership, leadership, and high-leverage roles always come with responsibility. Taking accountability also teaches resilience. Mistakes become learning experiences rather than failures. You become someone who can handle complexity, pressure, and ambiguity. This strengthens judgment, which will be critical for later lessons on wealth and decision-making. However, accountability is not just about work. It is about owning your life, decisions, and actions. When you take responsibility for everything you do, you stop blaming circumstances or others. You gain freedom because you realize you are in control of your results. Once you understand accountability, the natural next step is to leverage it for wealth creation. You must now think about ownership and equity. How can you convert responsibility, skills, and trust into something that generates long-term value? This leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 5. Build or buy equity in a business. Wealth is not earned by trading time for money. It is created when you own a piece of something that produces value. Naval emphasizes that to escape the limits of wages, you must build or buy equity in a business. Equity is ownership, and ownership is the only path to true financial freedom. Most people work for a paycheck. They exchange hours for money, and no matter how hard they work, there is a ceiling. A fixed salary cannot scale. You are always limited by the number of hours you can work in a day. Even a high-paying job eventually reaches its limit. Equity works differently. When you own part of a company or an asset, its growth benefits you directly. Your effort compounds over time. You do not need to be present for the value to increase. Software, media, patents, and investments grow while you sleep. Naval suggests two primary paths. You can build equity by creating your own business or product. This could be a startup, a digital platform, a service, or a brand. Building equity requires risk, creativity, and long-term commitment. It demands that you take accountability, make decisions, and solve real problems. The second path is to buy equity. This involves investing in businesses, startups, or assets where your capital and judgment can grow. Buying equity allows you to participate in growth without starting from scratch. It requires discernment, patience, and the ability to evaluate opportunities. Equity and ownership are forms of leverage. They allow your work, skills, and reputation to create returns far beyond what a job can provide. When you combine equity with leverage, time, code, or media, you unlock extraordinary potential. Naval also highlights the importance of long-term commitment when holding equity. Do not expect immediate payoff. Ownership rewards patience and persistence. Compounding works slowly but relentlessly, and the best returns often come after years of dedication. Another critical insight is that equity aligns incentives with outcomes. When you own a piece of something, your success is tied to the value you create. You stop thinking in terms of tasks or hours. You focus on results, growth, and real impact. This mindset is what separates ordinary earners from extraordinary wealth creators. Equity is also scalable. One business can impact thousands or millions of people. Your ownership grows as the company grows. A small stake in a growing venture can eventually surpass a lifetime of wages. Once you understand the power of equity, the next question naturally arises. How do you maximize your impact without working harder than everyone else? How do you use leverage to multiply your efforts and create exponential results? The next chapter answers this. Chapter 6. Find a position of leverage. Wealth does not come from working harder. It comes from working smarter. And the key to working smarter is leverage. Leverage is using tools, people, or systems to multiply your efforts and results. It allows a single individual to create impact and value far beyond what they could achieve alone. Naval explains that there are three main types of leverage today: labor, capital, and code or media. Labor is when you hire people to work for you. This multiplies your output because others contribute their effort to achieve a shared goal. Capital is money working for you. Investments, businesses, and assets can grow and create returns even while you sleep. Code and media are forms of modern leverage. A single program, a book, a video, or an app can reach millions at almost zero additional cost. The power of leverage is that it allows you to decouple effort from outcome. Instead of earning only what you can personally produce, leverage multiplies your results. A single action or decision can generate massive impact when combined with the right tools. Naval also emphasizes permissionless leverage. This is leverage you can access without needing anyone else's approval. Software, media, and the internet are examples. They allow one person to build, share, and scale something globally without asking for permission from traditional institutions. This is the greatest advantage of the modern era. However, leverage comes with responsibility. The greater the leverage, the greater the potential risk. A mistake amplified by leverage can cause large losses. This is why judgment, skill, and discipline are essential companions to leverage. You must know what you are doing, because the tools will magnify both your success and your mistakes. Another critical point Naval makes is that leverage rewards authenticity and creativity. You cannot fake leverage. A program that is poorly designed, a product with no value, or media without substance will not succeed. Leverage works only when your work creates real impact and solves real problems. Leverage also allows you to scale without becoming a bottleneck. You do not need to work longer hours or sacrifice your health. A well-designed system, team, or product continues to produce value while you focus on higher priorities. This is the bridge from labor-intensive income to true wealth creation. Once you master leverage, you naturally move toward getting paid for your judgment. Leverage amplifies your decisions. Good judgment becomes your most valuable asset. Your choices, when combined with leverage, can create outcomes far beyond what effort alone can achieve. This sets the stage for the next chapter. Chapter 7. Get paid for your judgment. Leverage multiplies effort, but judgment multiplies results. Naval teaches that your ability to make the right decisions is one of your most valuable assets. Good judgment can turn a small opportunity into massive success. Poor judgment can erase years of work in an instant. To get paid for your judgment, you must first develop it. Judgment comes from experience, reflection, and learning from mistakes. It is not something that can be bought or copied. It is the result of thinking clearly, testing ideas, and learning which decisions lead to success and which do not. Most people are paid for time, not judgment. They trade hours for money, regardless of the quality of their decisions. But the world rewards those whose judgment is trusted and relied upon. Investors, entrepreneurs, and creators all benefit from getting paid for making better choices than others. Naval points out that judgment works best in combination with leverage. When your decisions are multiplied through capital, code, or media, their impact grows exponentially. For example, a single investment decision with good judgment can yield enormous returns if scaled through capital. A single product launch, guided by smart judgment, can reach millions through code or media. Another key insight is that trust is essential. People will pay for your judgment only if they trust that you understand the problem and will act wisely. This is why reputation, accountability, and integrity are critical. Without trust, even the best judgment is worthless. Naval also warns against overconfidence. Good judgment requires humility. You must recognize what you do not know and seek guidance or information when needed. Avoid emotional decisions. Test assumptions. Make decisions based on reality, not wishful thinking. Learning to get paid for judgment also means choosing the right areas to focus on. Your judgment is valuable only where there is high leverage and scarce skill. For example, investment decisions, strategic business moves, and creative direction are areas where judgment is rare and rewarded. Common decisions that anyone can make are rarely valuable. This principle also ties back to building wealth over time. When your judgment is trusted and applied wisely, your opportunities compound. Good decisions lead to bigger responsibilities, partnerships, and ownership. The path to wealth accelerates naturally once judgment is developed and respected. Finally, getting paid for judgment is not just about money, it is about freedom. When people trust your decisions, you gain independence, influence, and the ability to choose projects that align with your values and goals. Once you understand how to get paid for judgment, the next lesson is about focus. Your judgment is powerful, but only if you apply it to the right priorities. This leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 8. Prioritize and focus. Even with leverage, specific knowledge, and judgment, success is not automatic. Naval emphasizes that the ability to prioritize and focus is what separates ordinary efforts from extraordinary outcomes. Your attention is limited, and how you use it determines your results. Most people try to do too many things at once. They spread their energy across tasks that offer little value. They respond to every distraction, meeting, and notification. The result is busyness without progress. You may appear productive, but your output is scattered and shallow. Naval teaches that focus is the multiplier of leverage and judgment. A single focused effort on what truly matters is far more powerful than fragmented work. When you concentrate on high-value tasks, your decisions and actions compound over time. Focus allows you to turn specific knowledge into mastery and leverage into results. Prioritization is the first step. You must identify the few things that matter most. Ask yourself, which actions create the largest impact on my goals? Which projects, relationships, or opportunities truly move the needle? Everything else is noise and can be ignored, delegated, or postponed. Naval also highlights the importance of saying no. Saying yes to every request or opportunity dilutes your effort. Learning to say no is one of the most valuable skills in life. It protects your time and energy for the things that truly count. Another essential lesson is eliminating low-value distractions. Emails, meetings, social media, and trivial tasks often consume more energy than we realize. Naval suggests creating systems and boundaries to minimize these interruptions. Your mind is your most valuable asset, and focus protects it. Focus also requires patience. Not every high-priority task yields immediate results. Compounding works slowly. Consistent, disciplined focus over months and years leads to mastery and wealth. Temporary setbacks or slow progress should not shake your commitment. Naval also connects focus to happiness. When you focus on meaningful work, you experience flow. Flow is the state where time disappears, your mind is fully engaged, and satisfaction naturally arises. This state is rare but highly rewarding. It is a combination of wealth creation and personal fulfillment. Finally, prioritization and focus prepare you for play and creativity. When your energy is concentrated on the right things, you naturally find work that feels like play. Your efforts become effortless in a sense because you are aligned with your strengths and passions. Once you understand focus, the next lesson becomes natural. If you focus on work that feels like play, not only will you be more productive, but your enjoyment will multiply. This leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 9. Find work that feels like play. Naval emphasizes that the key to sustained wealth and happiness is finding work that feels like play. When your work aligns with your natural curiosity, passion, and strengths, it no longer feels like labor. It becomes something you do for the joy of it, not just for the reward. Most people see work as a burden. They endure hours at a job they dislike, chasing money or status. Even when they succeed, the effort feels heavy and life seems short. Naval teaches that this approach is inefficient. Energy and attention are limited. If your work drains you, your productivity and creativity suffer. Work that feels like play emerges when specific knowledge meets passion. When you use your unique skills in a field you enjoy, time becomes flexible. Hours feel shorter. Challenges become puzzles instead of obstacles. Flow naturally appears and output multiplies. Naval also points out that play is not the same as laziness. It requires mastery, discipline, and effort. You must invest time to develop skills that others cannot easily copy. Once mastery is achieved, however, the effort feels joyful instead of exhausting. This is the secret of people who work long hours without feeling tired. Another important lesson is that play often leads to innovation. When you are enjoying your work, your mind is free to explore, experiment, and create. New ideas, solutions, and opportunities emerge naturally. Passion fuels creativity, which in turn fuels value creation. Naval warns against following trends or external pressure. If you pursue work for money alone, it will never feel like play. Even if it is lucrative, it will feel like drudgery. Instead, align your work with what feels effortless and meaningful to you. The world rewards those who are both excellent and authentic. Work that feels like play also builds resilience. Challenges are easier to overcome when you enjoy what you do. Setbacks become lessons rather than frustrations. Motivation does not need to be forced. It flows naturally from engagement and interest. Finally, finding work that feels like play is closely tied to luck, opportunity, and patience. When you are deeply skilled and genuinely passionate, the right doors tend to open. People notice your dedication, creativity, and joy. They reward you with trust, partnerships, and opportunities that amplify your impact. Once you find work that feels like play, the next step is understanding the role of luck. Even the most skilled and focused person will encounter situations beyond their control. Understanding how to position yourself for luck is the next lesson. This leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 10. How to get lucky. Naval teaches that luck is not just chance. It is not a magical force that favors the random. Instead, luck is positioned preparation meeting opportunity. The more prepared and skilled you are, the more likely you are to notice, attract, and take advantage of opportunities. Most people wait passively for luck. They hope that some miracle will change their lives. This approach rarely works. True luck requires action, effort, and positioning. You must put yourself in situations where good things can happen. One way to get lucky is through specific knowledge. When you have unique skills and insights, you can create opportunities that others cannot see. People naturally gravitate toward talent, curiosity, and excellence. The more unique and valuable your abilities, the more likely others will notice and reward you. Another key is building relationships with long-term people. Trust and reputation compound over time. When you collaborate with talented and ethical individuals, opportunities multiply. Luck often comes through the network you cultivate and the people who vouch for you. Naval also highlights taking risks intelligently. Calculated risks expose you to opportunities that others miss. The more willing you are to act boldly, while maintaining integrity and judgment, the more doors open. Luck favors those who are ready when opportunity arrives. Patience is another critical factor. Some opportunities require long-term effort before yielding results. The world often rewards persistence more than speed. Those who stay committed to their craft, relationships, and projects are more likely to encounter serendipitous breakthroughs. Being prepared for luck also means learning continuously. Knowledge, awareness, and skills allow you to recognize opportunities that others ignore. When the right moment comes, you can act decisively rather than hesitating. Naval points out that luck compounds. A single fortunate event can create a chain of subsequent opportunities. Your preparation, leverage, and relationships magnify its effect. Conversely, ignoring preparation or avoiding effort limits your chance for luck. Finally, Naval emphasizes attitude. Open-mindedness, curiosity, and optimism help you see possibilities rather than obstacles. People who complain, doubt, or resist change often miss the fortunate moments around them. Once you understand how to get lucky, the final lesson in building wealth is simple but profound. Patience. Even with preparation, skill, leverage, judgment, and relationships, wealth grows slowly. Rushing, forcing outcomes, or seeking shortcuts often destroys opportunities. Patience allows compounding to work its magic. This leads us naturally to the next chapter. Chapter 11. Be patient. Patience is the secret ingredient that transforms effort, skill, and leverage into lasting wealth. Naval emphasizes that building real value cannot be rushed. Quick gains, shortcuts, or chasing instant results rarely lead to true freedom. Time is the friend of those who prepare, create, and act consistently. Most people lack patience. They want results immediately, comparing themselves to others, and often quit when progress feels slow. This impatience is the enemy of compounding. Small, steady actions repeated over years are far more powerful than bursts of frantic effort. Naval explains that patience works on multiple levels. First, patience with skill development. Mastery takes years of practice. Specific knowledge cannot be rushed. You must immerse yourself in learning, experimentation, and real-world application. Over time, your expertise becomes rare and highly valuable. Second, patience with relationships and partnerships. Long-term games require trust, collaboration, and reputation. These cannot be accelerated. They compound slowly as others observe your integrity, consistency, and results. Third, patience with wealth accumulation. Equity, investments, and assets grow gradually. The magic of compounding works silently. Those who chase immediate returns often make mistakes, overreact, or lose sight of long-term opportunities. Naval also highlights the importance of mental patience. The ability to wait calmly without anxiety allows better decision-making. When you are impatient, you make impulsive choices, take unnecessary risks, and waste leverage. Patience gives clarity, which amplifies judgment and increases your chances of success. Another dimension of patience is accepting uncertainty. The future is unpredictable, and no amount of effort guarantees immediate results. Patience allows you to continue working steadily while trusting the process and the compounding effect of time. Naval teaches that patience compounds exponentially with leverage. The longer you stay committed to your craft, relationships, and assets, the more the rewards multiply. Time favors those who are consistent, focused, and willing to wait for outcomes. Patience also allows you to enjoy the journey. You become less stressed, more creative, and more resilient. The process of building wealth, mastery, and judgment becomes a source of fulfillment rather than a constant struggle. Finally, patience connects naturally to the next stage of Naval's teachings: judgment. All the skills you have built, specific knowledge, leverage, focus, relationships, and accountability, require the ability to make wise decisions over time. Patience ensures that your judgment is applied carefully, strategically, and at the right moments. Chapter 12. Judgment. Judgment is the ability to make decisions that produce the best outcomes. Naval emphasizes that wealth is not only about hard work, leverage, or knowledge. It is about making wise choices consistently. The better your judgment, the more effective your actions become, and the faster your wealth compounds. Most people underestimate the power of judgment. They focus on doing more rather than deciding better. They act impulsively or react to circumstances without considering long-term consequences. This leads to wasted effort, missed opportunities, and avoidable mistakes. Naval teaches that judgment is developed through experience, reflection, and learning from others. You must expose yourself to challenges and decisions, observe outcomes, and refine your thinking. Mistakes are not failures, they are lessons. Each lesson improves your ability to see reality clearly and choose wisely. Good judgment also requires independence of thought. You must avoid being swayed by social pressure, trends, or opinions that do not align with facts. Thinking for yourself, questioning assumptions, and analyzing situations critically are essential habits. Another critical aspect of judgment is long-term thinking. Short-term decisions often feel urgent, but they rarely create lasting value. Judgment means considering the consequences of your actions years into the future. It means playing long-term games where outcomes compound over time. Naval also points out that judgment is context-dependent. There is no universal rule for every situation. Good judgment requires understanding the environment, the people involved, and the systems at play. It requires learning patterns, probabilities, and mental models to make informed decisions. Judgment is particularly valuable when combined with leverage. Your choices become magnified when applied to code, capital, or teams. The same decision made without leverage produces limited results. Applied wisely, it can create extraordinary outcomes. Developing judgment also involves emotional discipline. You must learn to control impulses, manage stress, and avoid decisions driven by fear, greed, or envy. Clear thinking allows you to act rationally and confidently, even in uncertain situations. Naval emphasizes that judgment is a learnable skill, not a fixed trait. By observing patterns, reading extensively, reflecting on decisions, and learning from mentors, anyone can improve. Over time, superior judgment becomes a competitive advantage that cannot be easily copied. Finally, Naval links judgment to the next chapter. Good judgment depends on clarity of thought, the ability to separate reality from illusion, and the skill to see through biases. Before you can consistently make wise decisions, you must learn how to think clearly. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 13. How to Think Clearly. Clear thinking is the foundation of judgment. Naval emphasizes that your decisions are only as good as your ability to see reality without distortion. Thinking clearly means separating facts from emotions, assumptions, and societal noise. Without clarity, even the most knowledgeable or skilled person can make poor choices. Most people fail to think clearly because their minds are cluttered. They are influenced by opinions, fear, desire, and outdated beliefs. They react instead of observing. They assume instead of analyzing. This mental clutter prevents them from recognizing opportunities or making rational decisions. Naval teaches several principles for thinking clearly. First, simplify. Complex problems often overwhelm, but breaking them into smaller, understandable pieces reveals patterns and solutions. Clarity comes from reducing noise and focusing on what matters. Second, question assumptions. We often accept norms, rules, or advice without testing if they are true for our situation. Good thinking requires skepticism. Ask yourself why something is true, whether it applies to your context, and if alternative explanations exist. Third, avoid emotional interference. Decisions driven by fear, greed, envy, or pride are rarely optimal. Train yourself to pause, reflect, and detach from immediate emotions before choosing. Emotions can be informative, but they should not dominate reasoning. Fourth, read and learn broadly. Naval stresses that mental models from multiple disciplines improve clarity. Economics, psychology, philosophy, and science all provide frameworks for understanding reality. The more models you understand, the better you can interpret complex situations. Fifth, use first principles thinking. Instead of relying on analogy or conventional wisdom, break problems into their fundamental truths. Reason from these truths to create solutions or make decisions independently of bias or herd behavior. Naval also points out that clarity grows with reflection and observation. Taking time to meditate, journal, or think quietly allows insights to surface. Patterns that are invisible in the rush of daily life become apparent when you step back. Another key lesson is to avoid overcomplication. Many mistakes occur because people try to predict every variable or control everything. Clear thinking recognizes uncertainty and focuses on what is most important. It allows you to act decisively without being paralyzed by endless possibilities. Finally, clear thinking naturally leads to the next step: shedding your identity. Naval emphasizes that attachment to ego, status, or societal roles distorts perception. To see reality as it is, you must shed false identities and preconceptions. This prepares us for the next chapter. Chapter 14. Shed your identity to see reality. Naval emphasizes that our identity often distorts perception. Who we think we are, our roles, titles, beliefs, and societal labels can create blind spots. To make clear decisions and develop good judgment, we must shed false identities and see reality objectively. Most people live inside a constructed identity. They define themselves by job titles, social status, or the expectations of others. This creates biases. They interpret events not as they are, but as they wish them to be, based on who they think they are. Naval teaches that detachment from identity is liberating. When you stop being defensive about your beliefs or roles, you can observe situations clearly. You can analyze problems without ego, pride, or fear clouding judgment. This clarity allows for better decisions in work, relationships, and life. Shedding identity also helps in learning and adaptability. If you are attached to being an expert, or a certain kind of person, you resist new knowledge that challenges your self-image. This resistance limits growth. When identity is loosened, you can absorb lessons from any situation or person, accelerating your mastery. Naval also points out that identity often drives unnecessary conflict and comparison. People act to protect their image or compete for status instead of pursuing real value. By shedding identity, you focus on substance rather than perception. You stop reacting to external pressures and instead act based on truth and logic. Another key insight is that freedom comes from detachment. When you are no longer bound by what others think or by your own preconceptions, you can choose your path freely. You can experiment, take risks, and pursue opportunities without fear of judgment. This is critical for both wealth creation and personal happiness. Naval emphasizes that shedding identity does not mean losing self. It means understanding the difference between your essence and the labels you carry. Your essence, curiosity, creativity, resilience, is constant. Labels, roles, and societal expectations are flexible and often misleading. Shedding identity also strengthens judgment. Without the constraints of ego or social pressure, you can see patterns, evaluate reality, and make choices with greater accuracy. Your decisions become rooted in truth, not in who you think you are or who you want others to see. Finally, Naval connects this chapter to skill development. Once you see reality clearly, you can learn the skills of decision-making more effectively. No strategy, judgment, or leverage works if your perception is clouded by false identity. This leads us naturally to the next chapter. Chapter 15. Learn the skills of decision-making. Naval emphasizes that wealth, success, and happiness depend on the quality of your decisions. Decision-making is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and refined. The better your decisions, the more effectively you apply knowledge, leverage, and judgment. Most people make decisions impulsively or based on emotion. They react to circumstances instead of analyzing them. They are influenced by fear, greed, social pressure, or ego. This results in missed opportunities, mistakes, and wasted effort. Naval teaches several strategies to improve decision-making. First, invert problems. Instead of asking how to succeed, ask how to avoid failure. Eliminating obvious mistakes often provides a clearer path to the best choices. This approach helps simplify complex situations and reduces risk. Second, use probabilistic thinking. Rarely are outcomes certain. Instead of expecting certainty, consider the likelihood of different results. Assign probabilities and plan for contingencies. Thinking in terms of probabilities improves judgment under uncertainty. Third, defer to first principles. Break problems into their fundamental truths rather than relying on analogies or assumptions. This allows you to build solutions from reality instead of convention or hearsay. First principles thinking often reveals opportunities that others overlook. Fourth, avoid short-term thinking. Decisions should be evaluated not just by immediate impact, but by long-term consequences. Successful people play long-term games where rewards compound over years. Short-term fixes may feel satisfying, but rarely produce lasting value. Naval also highlights the importance of mental models. These are frameworks for understanding the world, drawn from disciplines like economics, psychology, physics, and history. Applying the right model to a problem helps you predict outcomes and make rational choices. The more models you master, the sharper your decision-making becomes. Another key aspect is emotional control. The best decisions are made calmly, without panic or overexcitement. Meditation, reflection, and time to think help detach from impulses and see reality clearly. Naval emphasizes learning from mistakes. Each wrong decision is an opportunity to improve. Analyze failures, extract lessons, and adjust your approach. Over time, this builds a track record of better choices, which compounds like wealth. Finally, decision-making is deeply connected to action. Good decisions are useless if not executed. Once you choose wisely, commit fully, measure results, and adjust as needed. This cycle of decision, action, and reflection is the foundation of mastery. Once you develop strong decision-making skills, the natural next step is to collect mental models. Mental models amplify judgment, enhance clarity, and improve your ability to navigate complex situations. This leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 16. Collect Mental Models. Naval emphasizes that one of the most powerful tools for judgment and decision-making is a rich collection of mental models. Mental models are frameworks for understanding the world. They are simplified representations of reality that help you predict outcomes, solve problems, and make rational decisions. Most people approach problems with limited models. They rely on intuition, conventional wisdom, or rules of thumb that may not apply. This narrow thinking leads to mistakes, missed opportunities, and repetitive errors. Naval teaches that collecting mental models from multiple disciplines gives you versatility and clarity. Economics, psychology, physics, biology, history, and philosophy all offer unique ways to interpret reality. By combining models from different fields, you can see patterns and connections that others miss. A key insight is that mental models compound your judgment. Instead of making each decision from scratch, you can apply proven frameworks. This reduces errors, saves time, and increases the likelihood of success. Models act like shortcuts to wisdom, guiding you to better outcomes faster. Another important principle is invert your thinking. Models like inversion ask you to consider the opposite of what you want. For example, instead of asking how to succeed, ask how to fail. Avoiding failure often leads to better strategies and decisions than blindly chasing success. Naval also emphasizes probabilistic models. Life is uncertain, and outcomes are rarely guaranteed. Thinking in probabilities allows you to weigh risks and rewards rationally. This mindset helps in business, investing, and personal choices. Another essential idea is feedback loops. Understanding how actions lead to results, which then influence future actions, helps you adjust strategies and improve continuously. Positive feedback loops amplify success, while negative loops highlight areas to fix. Naval points out that mental models are not static. They must be updated constantly with experience, observation, and learning. The world changes, and clinging to outdated models leads to poor decisions. Curiosity, reading, and reflection are essential to expanding your mental toolbox. Finally, Naval connects mental models to reading. Books, conversations, and experiences are the best sources of new models. Reading widely allows you to internalize frameworks from thinkers across time and disciplines. The more models you have, the sharper your thinking and judgment become. Once you begin collecting and applying mental models, the next step is to develop a love for reading. Reading fuels curiosity, exposes you to ideas, and continuously strengthens judgment and decision-making. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 17. Learn to love to read. Naval emphasizes that reading is one of the most powerful habits for building knowledge, judgment, and wealth. Books allow you to learn from the experiences and insights of thousands of people across time, without repeating their mistakes. Reading is a form of leverage. Your mind absorbs ideas, frameworks, and strategies that can multiply your results exponentially. Most people read passively, or only for entertainment. They skim headlines, social media posts, or articles, but rarely engage deeply with ideas. Naval teaches that to truly benefit, reading must be active, intentional, and consistent. One key principle is to read broadly and deeply. Do not confine yourself to one discipline. Philosophy, economics, psychology, science, history, and literature all offer insights that improve judgment and creativity. Diverse reading gives you multiple perspectives, helping you see connections and patterns others miss. Another principle is read for understanding, not just information. Absorbing facts alone is not enough. Seek to understand the underlying principles, ideas, and mental models that guide successful thinkers. Ask yourself how these lessons apply to your life, work, and decisions. Naval also emphasizes the importance of long-form thinking. Books train patience, focus, and the ability to follow complex ideas. This contrasts sharply with the rapid, shallow consumption of digital content. Long-form reading strengthens the mind, improves judgment, and enhances clarity. Another key idea is choose timeless knowledge over trends. Focus on books that teach principles that endure, rather than fleeting strategies or sensational content. Foundational wisdom compounds over time, while ephemeral knowledge quickly becomes obsolete. Reading also develops curiosity and creativity. By exposing yourself to new concepts, histories, and ideas, you expand the boundaries of your thinking. Connections form between seemingly unrelated concepts, leading to innovation and better problem-solving. Naval encourages reading with action in mind. Knowledge without application is wasted. Take lessons from books and integrate them into your life, work, and decisions. Experiment, reflect, and adapt what you learn to create real impact. Finally, Naval points out that reading is a lifelong habit. Even after achieving wealth or success, continuous learning ensures growth, adaptability, and relevance. It compounds over time, improving judgment, skills, and opportunity recognition. Once you develop a love for reading, you are ready to move from wealth building to happiness building. Knowledge and skill create external success, but true fulfillment requires presence, peace, and choice. This naturally leads us to Part 2. Happiness, Learning Happiness. Part 2. Happiness, Learning Happiness. While wealth gives freedom, happiness gives meaning. Naval emphasizes that happiness is not something you stumble upon. It is a skill that can be learned and cultivated over time. Most people search for happiness outside themselves, chasing money, approval, or possessions, only to discover that these are temporary and unreliable sources. True happiness comes from presence, awareness, and choice. It requires understanding the mind, detaching from unnecessary desires, and aligning your life with your values. Happiness is built through habits, perspective, and intentional living, rather than through luck or circumstance. Naval teaches that every desire, expectation, or comparison can become a source of unhappiness. When you learn to observe your mind without attachment, you create a stable foundation for joy. Happiness is not the result of success. It is the companion of a clear, disciplined, and aware mind. This part of the book focuses on learning happiness step by step. It explores how to cultivate presence, peace, acceptance, and mental freedom. By mastering these practices, you can enjoy life even in the absence of external rewards. Understanding that happiness is learned naturally leads to the next lesson. Chapter 18. Happiness is Learned. Naval emphasizes that happiness is a skill, not a gift. It is not something you acquire by chance, wealth, or success. Just as you learn to build wealth, you can learn to cultivate happiness deliberately. The mind can be trained to notice joy, embrace peace, and reduce unnecessary suffering. Most people believe happiness is external. They chase money, relationships, status, or possessions, expecting them to bring fulfillment. While these can provide temporary pleasure, they are unreliable and fleeting. True happiness comes from internal mastery, not external circumstances. Naval teaches that happiness can be learned through awareness. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Notice desires, cravings, and aversions, and recognize how they influence your emotional state. By seeing these patterns, you create space between stimulus and reaction, allowing peace to emerge. Another essential principle is presence. Most unhappiness comes from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. When you focus on the present moment, you free yourself from regret and anxiety. The present is the only reality, and embracing it is the foundation of joy. Naval also emphasizes letting go of comparisons. Envy, jealousy, and the need for external validation are constant sources of suffering. Happiness grows when you stop measuring yourself against others and focus on your own path and growth. Habit is another tool for cultivating happiness. Small daily practices, gratitude, reflection, meditation, or exercise compound over time. These habits rewire the brain to respond with calmness, resilience, and joy, even under stress. Naval warns against seeking happiness as a reward for success. Many people think, "I will be happy once I achieve this goal." The truth is that success alone does not guarantee contentment. Happiness must be cultivated independently of outcomes. Finally, Naval connects happiness to choice. Every moment, you can choose how to respond to life's circumstances. You can choose awareness over ignorance, acceptance over resistance, and peace over agitation. This freedom to choose is the cornerstone of lasting joy. Once you understand that happiness is learned, the next lesson is recognizing that it is also a choice. Awareness alone is not enough. You must actively decide to embrace peace and joy in your life. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 19. Happiness is a choice. Naval emphasizes that happiness is not a byproduct of circumstances. It is a conscious decision. Even in challenging situations, you have the power to decide how you respond emotionally and mentally. Choosing happiness means taking responsibility for your inner state, rather than relying on external conditions. Most people surrender their happiness to events, other people, or material possessions. They think, if only this happened, I would be happy. Naval teaches that this mindset is flawed. True contentment comes from internal choice, not external validation. Choosing happiness requires awareness. You must recognize when your mind drifts into negative patterns, such as regret, envy, or worry. Once you notice these patterns, you can consciously redirect your thoughts toward acceptance, gratitude, and presence. This is not suppression. It is deliberate mental training. Naval also points out the importance of responsibility. You are responsible for your own mental state. Blaming others or circumstances gives away your power and perpetuates unhappiness. Choosing happiness is an act of reclaiming control over your mind and life. Another key lesson is simplicity. We often complicate life with unnecessary desires and expectations. Reducing wants, letting go of attachment to outcomes, and appreciating what you have naturally fosters joy. The less you chase, the more content you feel. Happiness as a choice also requires forgiveness and acceptance. Holding on to resentment or regret anchors you in the past. Acceptance frees your mind and allows peace to flourish. When you forgive yourself and others, you create space for genuine contentment. Naval emphasizes that this choice compounds over time. Small, consistent decisions to focus on gratitude, presence, and mental calmness build a stable foundation for long-term happiness. Even difficult events become manageable when you approach them with choice and perspective. Finally, choosing happiness connects to the next lesson: presence. Happiness is sustained not by abstract thinking, but by fully engaging with the moment. By being present, you reduce unnecessary mental suffering and cultivate joy continuously. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 20. Happiness requires presence. Naval emphasizes that the key to lasting happiness is being fully present in each moment. The mind often drifts into regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. When this happens, we miss the reality of life unfolding right in front of us. Presence is the gateway to peace, joy, and clarity. Most people live in distraction. They replay memories, worry about outcomes, or compare themselves to others. This constant mental chatter creates stress and dissatisfaction. Naval teaches that happiness cannot coexist with distraction. The mind must anchor itself in the here and now. Presence requires awareness and attention. Notice your thoughts and emotions without judgment. Observe the world around you: sounds, sights, sensations, and interactions. By directing attention deliberately, you begin to experience life more vividly and joyfully. Naval also points out that presence is a skill cultivated through practice. Meditation, mindfulness, and reflective thinking are powerful tools. Even a few minutes of focused attention each day can retrain the brain to stay engaged with the present. Over time, this reduces stress and amplifies happiness. Another key lesson is that presence reduces suffering. Much of human pain arises from resisting reality, wishing things were different, or obsessing over uncontrollable events. By embracing the present moment, you accept reality as it is. This does not mean passivity. It means responding effectively without unnecessary emotional turbulence. Naval emphasizes that presence enhances gratitude and appreciation. When fully present, small pleasures, a conversation, a sunset, a meal, become sources of joy. The mind no longer postpones happiness for some future event. It discovers contentment in the now. Presence also strengthens decision-making and clarity. By observing situations as they are, without mental distortion, you make wiser choices. This principle connects back to wealth and judgment. Presence is not only a source of happiness, but also a multiplier of effectiveness in life. Finally, Naval links presence to peace of mind. Without presence, the mind is restless, scattered, and vulnerable to anxiety. With presence, life feels lighter, decisions become clearer, and happiness becomes self-sustaining. Once you understand presence, the natural next lesson is peace. Happiness is built not only by awareness, but also by cultivating inner calm, detachment, and balance. This leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 21. Happiness requires peace. Naval emphasizes that true happiness is inseparable from inner peace. Without peace, the mind is constantly agitated by desires, fears, and conflicts. Even wealth, success, or external pleasures cannot compensate for a restless mind. Happiness requires a calm foundation on which joy can rest. Most people seek happiness through stimulation or achievement, thinking external accomplishments will bring lasting contentment. Yet without peace, pleasure is fleeting and satisfaction is temporary. A restless mind cannot enjoy life. It always wants more, compares, and judges. Naval teaches that peace is cultivated through detachment and acceptance. Detach from outcomes, opinions, and societal pressures. Acceptance does not mean passivity. It means recognizing reality as it is without unnecessary resistance. This reduces suffering and allows happiness to arise naturally. Another essential practice is simplifying the mind. Reduce mental clutter by letting go of negative thoughts, regrets, and obsessive desires. Meditation, reflection, and conscious breathing help stabilize the mind. A simple mind is a peaceful mind, and a peaceful mind is fertile ground for joy. Naval also emphasizes resolving inner conflicts. When values, actions, and beliefs are misaligned, the mind experiences tension. Clarity about who you are, what you want, and what you stand for cultivates harmony. Peace emerges when your inner world aligns with your external actions. Another key insight is choosing what to care about. Many people waste energy on trivial concerns, comparisons, or matters beyond their control. By directing attention and care toward what truly matters, you conserve energy and reduce mental friction. Happiness grows when distractions and unnecessary burdens are minimized. Naval highlights that peace is also strengthened by gratitude and perspective. Recognizing what you have rather than focusing on what you lack shifts your mental state. Gratitude nurtures contentment and reduces the restless seeking that undermines happiness. Finally, Naval connects peace to the next lesson: desire. Every unchecked desire can become a source of unhappiness. Happiness requires not just awareness and presence, but also choosing which desires to pursue and which to release. By understanding the nature of desire, you prevent unnecessary suffering and cultivate lasting joy. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 22. Every desire is a chosen unhappiness. Naval emphasizes that desire is the root of much human suffering. Every longing for something we do not have creates tension, frustration, and restlessness. By constantly chasing what is missing, we trade peace for temporary satisfaction, making unhappiness a conscious choice. Most people live in a cycle of craving and disappointment. They want more money, better status, or approval from others. Even when desires are fulfilled, new ones arise, keeping happiness always just out of reach. Naval teaches that understanding this pattern is key to freeing yourself. The first principle is awareness of desire. Notice when a craving arises and how it affects your mind and emotions. By observing desires without immediately acting on them, you gain control instead of being controlled. Awareness creates a gap between impulse and action, allowing conscious choice. Second, distinguish between essential and trivial desires. Some desires serve survival, growth, or meaningful connection. Others are unnecessary, driven by comparison, ego, or habit. Letting go of trivial desires reduces mental noise and opens space for contentment. Naval also highlights the paradox of fulfillment. Chasing desires often intensifies dissatisfaction. When you release attachment to outcomes and cultivate contentment in the present, life becomes more enjoyable. Desires no longer dominate your emotional state. Another key insight is self-mastery over impulses. Every unfulfilled desire is an opportunity to practice patience, restraint, and reflection. The more control you have over your cravings, the more freedom and peace you experience. This mastery transforms desires from sources of suffering into opportunities for growth. Naval points out that happiness is not the absence of desire, but the conscious management of it. You choose which desires to entertain and which to release. Unchecked desires are chains. Conscious choice is freedom. Finally, understanding desire naturally leads to the next lesson. Success. Many believe achieving goals automatically brings happiness, but external success cannot replace inner contentment. Happiness arises not from achieving everything you want, but from managing desire wisely and finding fulfillment in the present. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 23. Success does not earn happiness. Naval emphasizes that external achievements alone cannot create lasting happiness. Many people equate success with fulfillment, believing that wealth, fame, or power will finally make them content. Yet, the reality is that success without internal clarity and peace often leaves the mind restless and dissatisfied. Most people chase goals thinking that once they are achieved, happiness will naturally follow. They think, if only I reach this level, I will be happy. Naval teaches that this is a flawed approach. Happiness is not a reward for accomplishments. It is a state cultivated independently of external outcomes. One key principle is decoupling identity from success. Many define themselves by titles, achievements, or possessions. When success defines self-worth, any setback or failure triggers unhappiness. True contentment comes when you value your essence, curiosity, and growth above external markers. Naval also emphasizes internal metrics over external validation. External success is temporary and influenced by factors beyond your control. Internal success, clarity, resilience, curiosity, and ethical alignment builds a lasting foundation for joy. When you focus on improving yourself rather than impressing others, happiness naturally increases. Another important lesson is presence in achievement. Success often distracts people from the moment, filling the mind with anxiety, comparison, or greed. By staying present, you can celebrate accomplishments without attaching your self-worth to them. This prevents achievement from becoming a source of stress or dissatisfaction. Naval highlights that gratefulness enhances fulfillment. Instead of constantly seeking more, appreciate what you have achieved and learned along the way. Gratitude transforms milestones from fleeting pleasures into sustained joy. He also points out the danger of never-ending ambition. Pursuing success without pause can lead to burnout, envy, and a feeling of emptiness. Happiness grows when ambition is balanced with self-awareness, presence, and appreciation. Finally, Naval connects this lesson to envy. Even successful people fall into unhappiness when they compare themselves to others or focus on what they lack. Managing envy is essential for converting achievement into genuine contentment. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 24. Chapter 24. Envy is the enemy of happiness. Naval emphasizes that envy is one of the most destructive emotions for happiness. Comparing yourself to others creates dissatisfaction, restlessness, and bitterness. Even if you achieve your goals, envy makes it hard to appreciate your own life. Happiness is built not by measuring yourself against others, but by understanding your unique path and values. Most people unconsciously let envy influence their thoughts and actions. They focus on what others have, imagining their lives to be better, easier, or more fulfilling. This comparison steals joy and replaces gratitude with longing. Naval teaches that recognizing and managing envy is critical for mental peace. One key principle is self-awareness. Notice when feelings of envy arise and examine their source. Often, envy is rooted in fear, insecurity, or attachment to material or social validation. Awareness allows you to consciously redirect energy from comparison to self-improvement. Naval also emphasizes focus on your own journey. Each person has different circumstances, skills, and opportunities. Comparing yourself to someone else is misleading because their path is not yours. Happiness grows when you concentrate on your growth, learning, and progress rather than others' achievements. Another important lesson is gratitude as an antidote to envy. By appreciating what you have and the progress you've made, you shift the mind from scarcity to abundance. Gratitude helps you recognize that happiness is internal, not dependent on having more than others. Naval highlights collaboration over competition. Instead of resenting the success of others, learn from it. Use it as inspiration and a model for your own improvement. Collaboration and learning replace envy with constructive action. Another key insight is mental detachment from social validation. Social media, status, and constant comparison amplify envy. Reducing attention to these external measures allows your mind to settle into contentment and focus. Finally, Naval connects this lesson to habit. Happiness is strengthened by daily practices that minimize envy, reinforce gratitude, and cultivate self-awareness. Small, consistent choices compound over time into a stable sense of joy. Once you learn to manage envy, the next step is building happiness through habits. Happiness is not only a mental state, but also a result of intentional, repeated actions that shape your mind and life. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 25. Happiness is built by habits. Naval emphasizes that happiness is not a single event or sudden realization. It is the result of consistent habits. The mind and body respond to patterns, and over time, small daily actions shape emotional states and overall well-being. Happiness is cultivated deliberately, like any skill, through repeated practices that reinforce peace, gratitude, and awareness. Most people expect happiness to come from major achievements or external circumstances. Yet, the truth is that daily routines, mindset, and choices have a far greater impact. How you start the day, how you manage stress, and the thoughts you cultivate continuously shape your happiness. One key principle is consistency. Small positive habits, such as meditation, journaling, exercise, reading, or mindful reflection, compound over time. Even a few minutes each day, repeated consistently, builds resilience, clarity, and joy. Habits are the infrastructure of a happy mind. Naval also emphasizes intentionality. Habits are not just routines, they are deliberate practices designed to improve your mental, emotional, and physical state. Mindless habits may reinforce negative patterns, while intentional habits cultivate positive ones. For example, choosing gratitude over complaint, focus over distraction, and presence over anxiety shapes the brain toward happiness. Another essential idea is environmental influence. Your surroundings, social circle, and daily inputs directly affect your emotional state. Positive environments and relationships reinforce healthy habits, while toxic influences reinforce unhappiness. Naval teaches that managing these inputs is as important as cultivating internal discipline. Habit also strengthens emotional resilience. Life will always bring challenges, setbacks, and stress. When happiness is anchored in habits, it becomes less dependent on circumstances. You develop the ability to maintain calm, contentment, and clarity even in difficult times. Naval points out that happiness through habits is self-reinforcing. As habits generate small wins, like moments of peace, clarity, or gratitude, they reinforce themselves. The brain begins to anticipate joy, creating a virtuous cycle of positive reinforcement. Finally, Naval connects habits to acceptance. When happiness is built into daily routines, you are better prepared to accept life as it is, rather than constantly resisting or wishing things were different. This prepares the mind for the next level of happiness, learning to find contentment through acceptance, even in imperfection. Once you understand that happiness is cultivated through habits, the natural next step is finding happiness in acceptance. By embracing life without unnecessary resistance, you create a stable foundation for lasting joy. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 26. Find happiness in acceptance. Naval emphasizes that lasting happiness comes when we learn to accept life as it is. Resistance, judgment, and constant wishing for things to be different are major sources of suffering. By embracing reality, we release tension and create space for peace, contentment, and joy. Most people live in a state of ongoing dissatisfaction. They compare, criticize, and resist circumstances beyond their control. This mental resistance creates stress, anxiety, and unhappiness. Acceptance is not resignation. It is recognition of reality coupled with wise action. One key principle is distinguishing between what you can and cannot control. Focus your energy on what you can influence, your thoughts, actions, and decisions. Release attachment to what is outside your control, other people, events, or outcomes. This shift reduces mental friction and allows happiness to emerge naturally. Naval also emphasizes embracing imperfection. Life is inherently unpredictable and imperfect. Trying to force perfection in relationships, work, or personal life creates frustration. Acceptance means understanding that imperfection is part of reality, and peace grows when you stop fighting it. Another essential idea is letting go of judgment. Judging circumstances or others constantly triggers dissatisfaction. By observing without labeling things as good or bad, you cultivate equanimity. This neutral perspective stabilizes the mind and strengthens emotional resilience. Acceptance also enhances presence and gratitude. When you accept what is, you fully experience the moment rather than wishing it were different. Even small pleasures, a walk, a conversation, or a quiet morning, become sources of joy. Gratitude flows naturally when you embrace reality rather than resist it. Naval highlights that acceptance is a practice, not a one-time decision. Every day presents challenges, surprises, and disappointments. Practicing acceptance continuously strengthens the mind and gradually rewires habitual reactions from resistance to ease. Finally, Naval connects acceptance to the transition from external success to internal mastery. Happiness cultivated through acceptance is independent of wealth, status, or circumstance. It forms the foundation for deeper fulfillment, allowing you to focus on growth, values, and self-realization. Once you understand acceptance, the next step in happiness is choosing to be yourself, freeing yourself from societal pressure, and building a life aligned with your values. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 27. Choosing to be yourself. Naval emphasizes that one of the most powerful steps toward happiness is choosing to be yourself. Society constantly imposes expectations, norms, and comparisons that pressure us to conform. Many people live lives shaped by others' opinions, sacrificing authenticity for approval or acceptance. Happiness begins when you consciously decide to align your life with your true self. Most people hide behind masks, presenting versions of themselves they think will be admired. They chase careers, relationships, or lifestyles that satisfy others, but not their inner values. Naval teaches that this disconnect between internal truth and external life generates stress, dissatisfaction, and unhappiness. The first principle is self-awareness. Understand your own desires, strengths, and values rather than blindly following trends or societal pressures. Reflection, journaling, and honest self-assessment help identify what truly resonates with you. Naval also emphasizes courage. Choosing to be yourself often requires breaking free from expectations, facing judgment, and risking disapproval. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Authenticity is liberating, even if it initially feels uncomfortable or unconventional. Another key principle is alignment. Align your actions, work, and relationships with your values and interests. When your external life reflects your internal truth, you experience harmony, clarity, and sustained happiness. Naval highlights boundaries as essential for authenticity. Say no to things that do not serve your growth or values. Protect your energy and focus on choices that honor your true self. Happiness grows when life is intentionally shaped rather than passively endured. Choosing to be yourself also strengthens resilience. When challenges arise, those grounded in authenticity are less shaken by criticism, envy, or societal pressure. Your inner compass guides decisions, reducing mental conflict and increasing confidence. Finally, Naval connects this lesson to self-care. Being yourself is not only about freedom of expression, but also about valuing your mind, body, and spirit. It sets the stage for the next chapter. Choosing to care for yourself, where you consciously nurture your health, energy, and well-being. Once you embrace your authentic self, the natural next step is taking responsibility for your own care and growth. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 28. Choosing to care for yourself. Naval emphasizes that caring for yourself is a deliberate choice that directly impacts happiness and effectiveness in life. Many people prioritize work, obligations, or others' expectations over their own well-being, slowly depleting their energy and joy. True happiness requires nurturing your mind, body, and spirit with intention and consistency. Self-care is not selfish. It is the foundation for meaningful action, creativity, and emotional resilience. When you neglect yourself, stress, fatigue, and mental clutter accumulate, making it harder to think clearly, make good decisions, or enjoy life. By consciously choosing self-care, you create a stable base for growth, happiness, and fulfillment. Naval emphasizes physical well-being as a core component. Exercise, nutrition, sleep, and regular rest are essential for mental clarity, energy, and emotional balance. A strong, healthy body supports a sharp mind and sustainable happiness, allowing you to face challenges with vitality. Mental self-care is equally important. Naval suggests practices like meditation, reflection, and journaling to cultivate awareness and calm. These routines help manage stress, reduce overthinking, and enhance focus. A disciplined mind is a resilient mind, capable of sustaining happiness even under pressure. Another key principle is emotional hygiene. Protect yourself from toxic influences, negative relationships, and environments that drain energy or foster envy. Surround yourself with supportive people, meaningful interactions, and inspiring inputs that uplift your spirit. Naval also highlights boundaries. Caring for yourself often requires saying no to demands, expectations, or distractions that do not align with your values. Boundaries preserve your energy and ensure that your time and attention are invested wisely. Self-care extends to continuous learning and growth. Nurturing your skills, curiosity, and knowledge enriches your mind and creates opportunities. Growth fuels confidence, purpose, and satisfaction, reinforcing the cycle of well-being. Finally, Naval connects self-care to the next chapter, building mental strength. Choosing to care for yourself is a proactive step, but true happiness requires cultivating resilience, focus, and discipline. By strengthening your mind, you prepare to handle life's challenges without losing peace or joy. Once you commit to caring for yourself, the next step is developing mental strength and clarity to navigate life intentionally. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 29. Meditation and Mental Strength. Naval emphasizes that meditation and mental discipline are essential for lasting happiness and clarity in life. The mind is naturally restless, wandering between past regrets and future anxieties. Without training, this constant mental chatter creates stress, indecision, and unhappiness. Meditation is a practice that cultivates focus, awareness, and inner calm, forming the foundation of mental strength. Most people think meditation is about sitting still or emptying the mind completely. Naval clarifies that it is about observing thoughts without attachment, noticing patterns, and returning attention to the present moment. Through this practice, the mind learns to respond rather than react, creating space for deliberate choice and emotional stability. Mental strength is not just calmness. It is the ability to control attention, resist impulses, and make wise decisions. Life constantly presents challenges, distractions, and pressures. A strong mind allows you to navigate these with clarity, patience, and purpose, rather than being swept away by emotion or habit. Naval emphasizes the compound effect of consistent practice. Even a few minutes daily of meditation, reflection, or mindful awareness can gradually rewire the brain. Over time, you become more resilient, less reactive, and better able to maintain happiness regardless of circumstances. Another key principle is detachment from outcome. Mental strength grows when you focus on effort and presence rather than obsessing over results. This detachment reduces stress, envy, and frustration, allowing your mind to stay centered and peaceful. Naval also highlights the importance of self-observation and honesty. Recognizing mental habits, biases, and emotional triggers strengthens decision-making and self-mastery. With awareness, you can choose responses aligned with your values rather than impulsive reactions. Meditation supports emotional clarity, patience, and empathy, all of which enhance relationships and social interactions. It is not a solitary practice, but one that amplifies your effectiveness in all areas of life. Finally, Naval connects meditation and mental strength to the next chapter, choosing to build yourself. Once your mind is strong and aware, you are empowered to consciously create the life you want, make wise decisions, and pursue meaningful growth. Developing mental strength through meditation prepares you to actively shape your life rather than passively react. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 30. Choosing to build yourself. Naval emphasizes that happiness and fulfillment grow when you take conscious responsibility for building yourself. Many people drift through life, reacting to circumstances or following societal expectations. True freedom and satisfaction arise when you actively shape your mind, body, skills, and character. Choosing to build yourself means investing in your growth daily. This includes physical fitness, mental clarity, skill development, and emotional intelligence. Every effort you make compounds over time, creating resilience, competence, and confidence that enrich all areas of life. Naval highlights the importance of continuous learning. Reading, observing, reflecting, and experimenting expand your knowledge and understanding of the world. This not only improves judgment, but also builds self-reliance, reducing dependence on external validation for happiness. Another key principle is discipline. Building yourself requires consistent action, even when motivation wanes. Habits of practice, focus, and perseverance gradually shape your identity and capabilities. Discipline turns potential into actual growth. Naval also emphasizes alignment with values. Growth is most meaningful when it reflects your true self, not what others expect from you. By choosing paths that resonate with your principles and passions, you create a life that is authentic, fulfilling, and joyful. Physical, mental, and emotional development are interconnected. Strengthening one area supports the others. Exercise enhances energy and focus, mental training improves decision-making, and emotional awareness fosters better relationships and resilience. Building yourself is not about competition, but about becoming the best version of yourself. Compare only to who you were yesterday, not to others. This mindset fosters humility, gratitude, and long-term happiness. Finally, Naval connects building yourself to the next chapter. Choosing to grow yourself. Once you have committed to building your foundation, the next step is expanding your potential, exploring new skills, ideas, and perspectives to continuously evolve. Consciously building yourself sets the stage for meaningful growth, purpose, and lifelong fulfillment. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 31. Choosing to grow yourself. Naval emphasizes that growth is a deliberate, lifelong pursuit. Once you have built a solid foundation of habits, skills, and self-awareness, the next step is expanding your potential continuously. Choosing to grow yourself is about seeking new knowledge, experiences, and challenges that stretch your mind, body, and spirit. Many people resist growth because it requires effort, uncertainty, and leaving comfort zones. Yet, growth is essential for fulfillment and resilience. Naval teaches that personal evolution, intellectual, emotional, and practical, is a choice you make every day. The first principle is curiosity. Stay open to new ideas, perspectives, and possibilities. Curiosity drives learning, creativity, and adaptability, all of which empower you to navigate life more effectively. Without curiosity, you stagnate, relying on old habits and familiar patterns that limit happiness and success. Naval also emphasizes embracing challenges. Growth occurs when you confront difficulties and push beyond current abilities. Setbacks, failures, and discomfort are opportunities to learn, strengthen resilience, and expand your capacity. Avoiding challenges may feel safe, but it prevents meaningful progress. Another key principle is continuous skill development. Mastery of existing abilities, along with learning new skills, builds confidence and independence. The combination of competence and curiosity multiplies opportunities for both wealth and personal satisfaction. Naval highlights reflective practice as essential to growth. Regular reflection allows you to assess progress, identify weaknesses, and adapt strategies. By understanding patterns in behavior, thought, and emotion, you can evolve intentionally rather than reactively. Growth also involves expanding your influence and perspective. Learning from others, seeking mentorship, and exploring diverse viewpoints broadens understanding and cultivates empathy. Exposure to different experiences enhances both personal wisdom and social intelligence. Finally, Naval connects growth to freedom. As you grow, you become less dependent on external validation, societal pressure, or material conditions for happiness. This prepares the mind for the next stage, choosing to free yourself, where inner liberation becomes the ultimate expression of fulfillment. Choosing to grow yourself is a lifelong commitment to curiosity, courage, and continuous evolution. It naturally leads to the next chapter. Chapter 32. Choosing to free yourself. Naval emphasizes that true happiness and fulfillment require freedom from fear, desire, societal pressure, and mental limitations. Choosing to free yourself is about releasing attachments and constraints that prevent you from living authentically and fully. Freedom is not merely physical, it is internal, rooted in mindset, awareness, and deliberate choice. Many people unknowingly imprison themselves with habits, obligations, and expectations. They chase approval, cling to identity, and accumulate desires that bind them. Naval teaches that liberation comes when you consciously let go of what restricts your mind, spirit, and happiness. The first principle is freedom from fear. Fear drives avoidance, insecurity, and dependency. By observing fear without judgment and taking deliberate action despite it, you cultivate courage and mental resilience. Courage opens the door to freedom and a more expansive life. Naval also emphasizes freedom from desire. Unchecked cravings create restlessness and unhappiness. By recognizing which desires serve growth and which are unnecessary, you reduce suffering and enhance contentment. This does not mean eliminating ambition. It means managing desire intelligently. Another key principle is freedom from external validation. Dependence on others' opinions, societal norms, or approval limits self-expression. Naval teaches that happiness and clarity arise when your choices reflect your values, rather than external pressure. Inner freedom allows you to pursue purpose without compromise. Mental freedom is cultivated through awareness and mindfulness. Observing thoughts, emotions, and patterns without attachment creates space for deliberate choice. A free mind is capable of clarity, focus, and peace even amidst chaos. Naval highlights that freedom is also a practice of detachment. Detachment from outcomes, status, and identity reduces suffering. By letting go of rigid expectations and attachments, life becomes lighter, and happiness becomes self-sustaining. Finally, Naval connects freedom to the ultimate purpose of life, alignment with values, and presence in the moment. When free, you can fully engage with your goals, relationships, and experiences. Freedom amplifies joy, clarity, creativity, and the ability to live intentionally. Choosing to free yourself completes the journey of self-mastery, building a life where happiness, growth, and fulfillment are self-directed. It naturally leads to the next chapter, where we explore the meaning of life and philosophy, reflecting on why these practices matter. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 33. The Meanings of Life. Naval emphasizes that life's meaning is not given externally. It is something each individual discovers and creates. Many people search for purpose in wealth, status, or relationships, yet these alone do not provide lasting fulfillment. True meaning arises from alignment with your values, growth, and the conscious pursuit of a life that resonates with your inner self. Most people live reactively, driven by obligations, desires, and societal expectations. This often leaves a sense of emptiness or confusion about why they exist. Naval teaches that meaning is cultivated through awareness, deliberate choice, and reflection on what matters most to you. The first principle is self-reflection. Ask fundamental questions. Who am I? What do I value? How do I want to live? By exploring these questions honestly, you create clarity about your purpose and priorities. Reflection transforms life from a series of reactions into intentional action. Naval also emphasizes alignment with values. Life gains meaning when actions, goals, and relationships reflect your core principles. Without alignment, achievements may feel hollow, and success may bring little joy. Meaning is experienced when what you do resonates deeply with who you are. Another key principle is continuous growth and contribution. Developing your mind, body, and skills enriches your life and allows you to contribute positively to others. Meaning often emerges at the intersection of personal growth and impact on the world. By creating value for yourself and others, life becomes purposeful and satisfying. Naval highlights presence and appreciation as essential to meaning. Living fully in each moment, savoring experiences, and noticing beauty cultivates a sense of purpose. Even small actions, kindness, curiosity, or gratitude add layers of significance to daily life. Meaning also involves acceptance of impermanence. Recognizing that life is fleeting motivates conscious living rather than postponing joy or waiting for external validation. Acceptance encourages focus on what truly matters and reduces distraction from trivial concerns. Finally, Naval connects meaning to living by your values consistently. Once meaning is clarified, the natural next step is actively living according to those values, making decisions, and pursuing goals that reflect your inner truth. This prepares the mind for the next chapter, where we explore living by your values as a foundation for happiness and integrity. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 34. Live by your values. Naval emphasizes that living a life aligned with your values is essential for lasting happiness, integrity, and fulfillment. Values are the principles and standards that guide your decisions, actions, and priorities. When your life reflects your true values, every choice becomes simpler, every action more meaningful, and inner peace more accessible. Many people drift through life without consciously defining their values. They follow trends, seek approval, or react to circumstances, creating internal conflict and dissatisfaction. Naval teaches that clarity about values is not optional. It is the foundation for intentional living and sustainable happiness. The first principle is identifying your core values. Reflect on what truly matters to you: honesty, creativity, freedom, compassion, or growth. Values are not what society tells you to prioritize. They are the principles that resonate deeply within you. Once identified, they become your compass for decision-making. Naval also emphasizes consistency in action. Living by values requires aligning daily behaviors with your principles, even when inconvenient or challenging. Every decision, big or small, becomes a chance to reinforce integrity and self-respect. Consistency strengthens character and builds trust with yourself and others. Another key principle is prioritization. Values help you determine where to focus your time, energy, and attention. By filtering choices through your values, you avoid distractions, reduce stress, and make meaningful progress toward goals that matter. Naval highlights courage and authenticity as vital to living by values. It often requires saying no, resisting social pressure, or challenging norms. Courage allows you to act in alignment with your principles rather than defaulting to convenience or approval. Authenticity emerges naturally when values guide behavior. Living by values also cultivates clarity and peace of mind. When your decisions and actions are aligned with what you truly care about, inner conflict diminishes. You no longer struggle to reconcile external expectations with your inner truth, and happiness becomes more stable. Finally, Naval connects living by values to a philosophical perspective on life. Once your actions consistently reflect your principles, you are prepared to explore deeper philosophies, mindfulness, and presence. This naturally leads to the next chapter, Rational Buddhism, where practical philosophy reinforces living a meaningful and mindful life. Living by your values is the bridge between self-awareness and conscious, intentional living. It sets the stage for integrating philosophy into everyday choices. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 35. Rational Buddhism. Naval emphasizes that rational Buddhism is about applying the timeless principles of mindfulness, detachment, and awareness in a practical, logical way. It is not about dogma or ritual, but about observing reality clearly, understanding cause and effect, and cultivating a mind free from unnecessary suffering. The essence of rational Buddhism is learning to live intentionally, making choices that align with reason and personal values while fostering inner peace. Many people misunderstand Buddhism as purely spiritual or mystical. Naval explains that the philosophical principles of Buddhism, awareness, non-attachment, and presence, are tools for improving mental clarity, decision-making, and happiness. By rationally applying these principles, anyone can navigate life more effectively. The first principle is awareness. Observe your thoughts, emotions, and reactions without judgment. Awareness allows you to understand patterns of desire, fear, and habit that drive suffering. When you notice these tendencies, you gain the ability to choose responses instead of reacting automatically. Naval also emphasizes non-attachment. Desires, possessions, and outcomes often create stress and unhappiness when we cling to them. Rational non-attachment does not mean rejecting life's pleasures, but understanding which attachments cause suffering and consciously letting go of unnecessary burdens. Another key principle is presence in the moment. Much suffering arises from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. By focusing on the present, you cultivate clarity, gratitude, and joy, and your mind becomes less scattered and anxious. Rational Buddhism also teaches compassion and empathy. Recognizing that others suffer and that everyone acts from their own understanding fosters patience and kindness. Compassion enhances relationships, reduces conflict, and deepens fulfillment. Naval highlights cause and effect as a rational framework for life. Every action has consequences, and understanding this principle encourages conscious, responsible behavior. By observing how choices impact your life and others, you cultivate wisdom and make better decisions aligned with long-term well-being. Finally, Naval connects rational Buddhism to the next chapter. The present is all we have. Once you internalize awareness, non-attachment, and cause-effect reasoning, the mind naturally turns to the present moment. Living fully in the present is the culmination of rational Buddhism, anchoring happiness and clarity in every experience. Rational Buddhism is a practical philosophy for applying ancient wisdom to modern life. It sets the stage for mastering the present and embracing life without resistance. This naturally leads us to the next chapter. Chapter 36. The present is all we have. Naval emphasizes that the ultimate key to happiness, fulfillment, and clarity is living fully in the present moment. The past is unchangeable, and the future is uncertain. Clinging to memories, regrets, or anxieties prevents you from experiencing life as it is right now. Happiness, Naval teaches, is always found in the present, this moment, this breath, this thought. Many people waste energy regretting the past or worrying about the future. They believe happiness is somewhere else, after achieving a goal, reaching a milestone, or solving a problem. Naval clarifies that this mindset keeps you trapped in dissatisfaction. The truth is that every moment contains the potential for peace, awareness, and contentment if you choose to embrace it. The first principle is mindful awareness. Notice your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. Observe what is happening right now, instead of getting lost in stories of what was or what might be. This simple practice anchors the mind, reduces stress, and fosters joy. Naval also emphasizes acceptance. The present moment may not always align with your expectations or desires, but resisting it creates suffering. By accepting reality as it is, without unnecessary judgment or struggle, you cultivate calm and resilience. Acceptance is not passivity. It is clarity that allows intelligent and effective action. Another key principle is gratitude in the moment. Even small experiences, A warm cup of tea, a conversation, or a quiet walk contain value and beauty. Recognizing and appreciating the present enhances emotional well-being and builds a habit of joy. Naval highlights letting go of attachment to outcomes. The future is shaped by your actions, but obsessing over results creates anxiety. Focus on your effort, attention, and presence, and allow the outcomes to unfold naturally. This mindset strengthens both happiness and performance. Living in the present also fosters connection with others. When you are fully present, relationships deepen, communication improves, and empathy grows. Being here, fully attentive, is one of the greatest gifts you can offer yourself and others. Finally, Naval connects the present moment to all the lessons in the book. Wealth, judgment, happiness, growth, freedom, and philosophy all find their highest expression when anchored in presence. By integrating all the principles, self-awareness, values, growth, mental strength, and non-attachment into the now, life becomes rich, meaningful, and joyful. The present is the foundation for everything. It is the place where happiness is accessible, decisions are clear, and life unfolds fully. This concludes the main teachings of the Almanack of Naval Ravikant. By applying these insights on wealth, happiness, and philosophy, you are empowered to live intentionally, grow continuously, and experience lasting fulfillment. Thank you for listening to this full summary of the Almanack of Naval Ravikant. If you found these insights on wealth, happiness, and philosophy helpful, make sure to subscribe so you never miss future content that can guide you toward a better, more intentional life. By subscribing, you'll get more practical lessons, inspiring ideas, and powerful strategies to build wealth, strengthen your mind, and find lasting happiness. Remember, applying these principles consistently is what creates transformation. So stay curious, stay present, and keep growing. Hit that subscribe button now and continue your journey toward a richer, happier, and more meaningful life.